Today, I'm very pleased to introduce Aoife Scott to you all. Aoife Scott graduated from NCID in 2013 and was awarded the Graphic Studio Dublin Graduate Award. She has been an active member of the studio since joining and is currently serving on the board of directors. In 2017, Aoife left Dublin to complete a master's in printmaking at the Royal College of Art in London. In the short time since graduating from NCID, Aoife has exhibited widely and won awards, including the Wilkinson Print Award at the RHA Annual Exhibition, a commission for Mason, Hayes and Curran, and an honourable mention at the Comask Masters of Printmaking exhibition in Antwerp. I am interested in hearing Aoife's perspective, as she is one of the younger members in our studio. Since completing her degree, she has been constantly exploring and expanding her practice, and her master's in London saw her working in screen print, etching, sculpture, monoprint and lithography. She has printed on different surfaces, worked on ambitious large-scale prints, and worked with resin and found objects in her sculpture pieces. I would like to hear how Aoife's experiences in London have influenced her work and what print means to her within the wider context of her painting and her sculpture. Ecological and environmental concerns are an important part of Aoife's practice, and I hope she will talk a bit about how her surroundings influence the work that she makes. I hope Aoife will cheer us all up a bit and talk about her bold and playful use of colour. Aoife's rich and vibrant layers of blues, yellows and pinks carry through her prints, paintings and sculptures, and they're unmistakably Aoife. Aoife is an exciting and ambitious artist, and I look forward to hearing what her plans are for the future and where she hopes to be with her work over the coming months and years. Take it away, Aoife.
Oh, thanks, that was so nice. Okay, thanks so much for everyone for being here this morning listening to me. On such a lovely day when you should be outside in the sunshine. So I'm just going to skip through about 4 years to get to the good stuff. 2013, as Niamh said, I graduated from NCID and got the graduate award. And then that kind of really kick-started my career as an artist and my practices in being a printmaker. So after about a year or so working in the studio, trying to perfect my techniques in etching, Robert realized that I wasn't going to burn the place down or that I wasn't useless at printing. So he started to train me to edition for the studio. I worked with him on the B&A commission with Pat Harris in 2015, learning how to mix inks, tear paper and helping him proof. And then myself and Aoife Barrett editioned a couple of the prints for the B&A that year. Editioning is definitely hard work, but I absolutely love it, as I've learned a lot while editioning for the studio over the past 7 or 8 years. Also working with a group of amazing artists and printmakers in the studio has definitely benefited my practice. So in 2016, I started to work with Robert and a few of the other master printmakers in the studio on a big project with Mazer. This went on for about 1.5 years, and the studio kind of turned into a Mazer factory. It was a bit mad for a while, but it was great, and I learned a lot during this period. Working on these prints and getting to know Al gave me a lot of confidence in my career choice and made me really excited about the future. I knew I needed to push myself out of my comfort zone, and I needed to be more bold and experimental in my practice. So I think it was around this point that I decided I wanted to start a master's, and I started to look elsewhere apart from Ireland, and the Royal College of Art was one that just kept coming up. Also, over the years, I worked alongside some amazing printmakers in the studio, such as Siobhan Hyde, Stephen Lawler, Mick Timmins, Robert Russell, Claire Henderson and Lee Flanagan. And all of these people taught me a lot about how to edition, how to be really professional in my own printmaking practice, and gave me confidence in the choice that I've made for my career. So before I move on to the work that I made in London, I just thought it would be a good idea to kind of, I suppose, show some sort of timeline. A lot of the members in the studio who know my early work would have seen the progression from detailed black and white etchings to my more recent abstract colourful monoprints and resin casts. But if anyone missed the work in between, they might have thought that I had some sort of personality disorder, or that I'm paying someone else to make my most recent work. So I just wanted to show a timeline explaining my thought process and to show how the work has gradually changed since 2013. So a lot of my early work, in my early work, I was really interested in history and memory, old architecture and the abandoned space. I've always been a very nostalgic person, and as a child, I loved exploring forgotten and derelict buildings and ruins in Gweedore in rural Donegal, where my mum's family are from. I used to love inventing stories and trying to piece together what had happened to the people who had once lived in these places and make sense of all the forgotten and discarded belongings and found objects that I found. So from these explorations, I became really interested also in the fragility of memory and an anxiety I had about forgetting precious memories in life. This was probably because I realized at the time I was starting to kind of, I suppose time was starting to go past a lot quicker and childhood memories were slipping away. And this was quite, devastating to me as a very nostalgic person. So this is kind of the point where colour was introduced into my work, as you can see in Lab and Maggie in 2015. Started to use colour to bring these spaces back to life and to remember the people who had passed through, such as this woman called Maggie, who I made an entire series of prints on. I'm not going to talk about her because I would be here all day, but I made I discovered a cottage in Donegal in Meenanrana, which is in a valley at the foot of Ergo Mountain, and I kind of made a series of prints almost in memoriam to her. So I suppose colour was a way for me to celebrate the past and use it to remember these people such as Maggie, and also places that had been forgotten. And then Sky Blue Sky on the right hand side is a print that I made for the graphic studio for the sponsors portfolio in 2016. So in 2017, I started a master's in the Royal College of Art in London. And this was a point in my career where things really changed. I was exposed to a lot of incredible people and a lot of incredible facilities. So you can see Sharon Lee is down on the left in one of those photographs, and she was there in my first year helping me learn how to kind of, I suppose, take printmaking to another level and kind of look at print in a more expanded kind of way. I really had wanted to start working big, and this I suppose studio really helped me do that, because this, as you can see, the screens were absolutely massive. The printing beds were really, really big, and we had so much space to move around, which was brilliant. So yeah, I really wanted to use these 2 years to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone and really experiment with different techniques. So at this point, I was moving away from exploring memory and the derelict space and was looking more inwardly at my own personal anxieties. The general crippling anxiety I had to deal with every day, and also as time went by, an eco-anxiety was starting to inform my work. I really started freeing up at this stage, being a lot more intuitive and really embracing my mark making. Drawing has always been a really important part of my practice, but I wanted to kind of move away from using it so literally. I wanted it to be more abstract and more free. And the work, I suppose, then was starting to become a lot more me. I tend to kind of wear a lot of colors, and I'm drawn to color like a lot. And so when I was making my more dark etchings, I didn't feel, even though I enjoyed making them, I didn't feel like they were coming from me. So this is kind of a stage in my career where I felt like the work was starting to become a lot more me. So Yellow Mess on the left hand side was a large screen print that I suppose kind of came from a point in my life when I started to feel like very anxious. I was living in London. I'm very much an outdoorsy kind of adventurous person. I'm always kind of either running up a mountain, rock climbing on a cliff, or swimming in the sea. So being in London, I felt quite claustrophobic in a way. I felt a bit trapped. Although I was like really enjoying college, I felt a bit just very anxious. So this was kind of, I suppose, an expression of that. It was exploring almost like the kind of curled up fetal position, and balls of anxious energy and unease. And then the print on the right, Blue Bath, was actually awarded the printmaking prize in the RHA in 2018, which I was so shocked by because it had, like, the year before I had exhibited one of my really detailed and darker prints, and then this was the one that won the award the next year. So it really gave me a big confidence boost, and kind of made me kind of want to investigate and explore this type of work a lot more. So Blue Bath was one of the biggest prints I'd ever done at that point, and it, I suppose, kind of inspired a couple of more prints in this series. So I just wanted to put this slide in because I thought it was kind of relevant. And we went to the Victoria and Albert Print Archive with the college in 2019, and just before we graduate, 2018, sorry, I got the date wrong there. And the college asked us to pick two artists that we wanted to see the prints of, and I picked Sam Francis and Joseph Albers just because I was really exploring color at the time and mark making, and this for me was so exciting. I just seen how thick the ink was on the Albers prints, and how rich the colors and as well as the transparencies in Sam Francis's work was just mind-blowing. And it kind of made me realize, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be a printmaker. I want to be an artist, and I don't care what I have to do to get there and to become a successful artist as well. So yeah, I really want to go back and have a look at some more work there. But I think you can. I think if you email them in advance, you actually can. And if you're part of some sort of college or something, you can request to see the work. So these are the first monoprints or unique prints I made, and they came from Blue Bath. So I used all the same screens that I had made for Blue Bath, and I just really wanted to kind of explore being really intuitive and kind of almost playing and dancing with screens almost in a way. Like I felt making these, I was almost drawing with the screens, and I had a lot of fun making them. It kind of opened up kind of another part of the work, which was I started looking at, bundles and piles and remnants and things that had been left behind, and all of this kind of like unraveling and weaving through kind of started to symbolize energy and kind of unease and anxiety. So yeah, it was around this time that I started to become more and more aware and disturbed by the destructive remnants that we as humans were leaving behind us. Being someone who had always been really intrigued by the past and what we leave behind, I started asking myself questions like, what will future generations make of our 21st century remnants? So while making these prints, I had this in mind. The unanchored abstract shapes started to symbolize the enormous amount of waste we generate as they float in unknown environments. And Angela Griffith says of my work in these two prints that while this work is not very descriptive, it hints at the tangible and the familiar in a poetic and lyrical manner. I thought that was really nice. And I always find it really interesting to hear what other people say about my work and what other people have written about the work, because sometimes you haven't quite tapped into that yet. And you know, when I read what Angela had said about the work, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I meant. So then this series of screen prints went into an exhibition in the Graphic Studio in 2018 called Bold. And this was a group show with myself and Mazer and Shane O'Driscoll and Richard Gorman and Freya Buckler and Des Kenny. And it was great. It was a really, really bright and positive and exciting show to be involved in. And it was kind of, it came about at the right time when I had started to make the series of screen prints, and it gave me a push to finish them off before the show started. So it was a great experience. So when I returned to college to start my second year in the RCA, I knew that I wanted to make work that started a conversation and that got people thinking about consumerism and what they were leaving behind them and the impact that they had on the environment. So during the summer, I had started to collect and photograph all the plastic I was finding on the beaches where I swam. And I started to notice that I found all these colorful and shiny plastic fragments really interesting and really kind of beautiful to look at, which made me feel a bit uneasy, knowing that the harm that these things were causing to the environment and to the sea life. So also when returning to London then in September, I began also documenting and collecting plastic that I found floating around the streets of London. So I was gathering all of this research and kind of starting to think about, you know, pulling someone in with these bright colors and attracting them, and then actually having this really dark kind of undertone and creating a conversation that kind of hopefully might eventually, you know, create change as well. So these are the first prints that I made in my second year. This is when the color like really did start to go a bit mad. So from all the plastic that I collected from the beaches and then from the streets in London, and then also I kind of put a bag up in the studio for artists to throw, you know, plastic bags or any sort of kind of packaging that I could kind of scrunch up and print with into. So I ended up with bags and bags. And I kind of looked, my studio space kind of looked like I was some sort of crazy bag lady. But it was worth it. So what I was trying to do with these two prints was to I was trying to attract the viewer to the work with the bright colors and the kind of really exciting mark making. And then, you know, draw them in closer. And as they get closer to the images, they realize that actually there's something else going on here. And they start to question what that is. And, you know, looking at all the different textures of the plastic and the handles of the plastic bags and looking at how they look like they're floating almost in water or something. I suppose got them talking and kind of asking themselves, you know, why is the artist trying to create this conversation, and what is it that they're saying, and what can I do, you know, what kind of change can come out of it. So these were called Seasick 1 and Seasick 2, and they went into an exhibition in London called Water Relief, and it was a mid-year exhibition that the RCA do every year in CGP galleries in Southwark. So it was opened by Sasha Craddock, who is a well-known art critic and writer and curator, and they also, herself and Mark Titchener, who's one of the tutors there, and also an artist, they both did a set of crits, and I've never been so terrified by someone. Sasha is a hard woman, and she will tell you exactly what she feels. And the minute she saw my work, she told me that she really liked the prints, but she said, what the hell are they doing hanging like that. And she was right. Like I was trying to be too perfect. I was trying to match up the different marks. You know, I wanted them to be a diptych when they shouldn't have been a diptych. And you know, I had another installation piece, and she kind of told me, she was like, this is basically shit. So that was really, really an important and kind of great thing to happen to me during my time in the RCA, to hear someone who's like really well thought of, and you know, has kind of been through a lot of these kind of exhibitions, and she had really good feedback and then also really bad feedback. But yeah, it was a really great experience, this show. Okay, what time are we at? Okay. So these prints then came after the last these two ones, Seasick. So from Seasick, I kind of saw that a lot of the plastic started looking like almost like sea life, or like seaweed that was like floating in the sea. So I kind of, in these ones, I really wanted to kind of mimic that and show make the plastic look like they were either seahorses or jellyfish or bits of kelp, and have that kind of weird feeling of, oh, I'm looking at something that's in the water that's natural, but actually no, it's not. It's something that's actually destructive to the natural world. So these two are called Sink or Swim, and they are also monoprints using offset lithography and screen print. Oh, just also to note that I had, in my second year, my tutor was Helen Cammock, who was the winner of the Turner Prize last year or 2 years ago. And she was a really incredible part of my journey in kind of, I suppose, in my work changing a lot. She gave me so much confidence and really believed in me. And, you know, made me feel like I was involved in her own practice as well. I did 2 performances with her in Whitechapel Gallery, and I suppose she just, you know, she's so down to earth, and she made me feel, you know, that she started exactly where I started, and that if she can do it, and if she can go on to win the Turner Prize, you know, that I can. And yeah, well, I don't quite know if I can, but she really, really helped me kind of have confidence in myself. And she kept saying to me, Aoife, you know, it's all inside you. I just need to tease it out. And that's kind of something that I kind of has stuck with me, and that I kind of, you know, now that I'm teaching in NCAD, that's what I'm trying to do with my students. You know, a lot of them, it is actually in there. You just need to kind of try to help tease it out of them. So these are 2 prints that went into my degree show, Starved Whale and No Planet C. So at this point, I wanted to, I knew I wanted to make prints, but I wanted to print on a different material. I didn't want to print on paper anymore, because although the prints were starting to kind of look like, you know, underwater, undersea kind of environments, the static and flatness of the paper kind of, I don't know, wasn't working. So I started looking at printing onto plastic, and then I wasn't comfortable buying, you know, sheets of plastic. So I found this material, and it's just made of recycled plastic, and it was really durable. And I really liked the fact that it looked almost like canvas as well. And because at this point I was kind of starting to think about painting and bringing painting into my practice. So yeah, the plastic was really nice, because you could see all the flecks of old plastic, as if, like, to me it felt like, you know, this had a life, and now I was giving it another life. So yeah, Starved Whale was kind of self-explanatory in a way. I was looking a lot at how birds and whales and dolphins had been found washed up with their stomachs full of plastic. And I was really upset by the fact that they had actually starved themselves because they felt, because they were eating the plastic and the plastic was just remaining in their stomachs, they felt that they were full all the time and then just stopped eating. And I was looking at these images of these animals, and then also looking at my old prints and looking at all the plastic like piled up in my old photography and stuff. So there was something there that I wanted to kind of say and to kind of make work about. And then No Planet C, I was using the same kind of technique of layering and layering imprints and impressions of plastic on top of each other, and then I erased with white spirits sections of it to kind of talk about and express this almost disintegration and the melting of the ice caps as well. And this is the close-up of starved whale, and this is probably one of my favorite pieces that I've done to date. For me, they almost look like fossils, and there's so much going on within it that each section is, I find, really interesting to look at. I went back over, so once I had done all the printing with lithography, the offset lithopress, I then went back over and screen printed on top, and then I also did some hand drawing and some spray paint. I just kind of hung them up in my studio and left them there for a while, and then added bits. And then I'd go back downstairs and I'd print over it, and then I'd add kind of my own marks and with markers or with spray paint. So there's a lot of love that have gone into these. And then these are just two more that were in the exhibition, the final show exhibition. The one on the right, No Planet B, actually went into the RHA annual last year, which hardly anyone got to see, unfortunately, because of the pandemic. But yeah, this was the same kind of idea as the previous one, No Planet C. It again was kind of looking at the disintegration and the melting and the kind of the falling away of the ice caps and the planet in a way. And then Toxic Currents was again similar to Starved Whale, but this was kind of like, it was almost looking at this monster that we have created in a way, and the position I made, the position of the plastic on the sheet of tape or plastic was almost like I wanted to show that we as the viewer were driving this. So we were pushing it, and almost that we were behind the steering wheel. So yeah, it's all quite morbid, I'm sorry, but I use bright colors. But yeah, the reason why I also wanted to use this plastic is because I wanted to show that texture and that kind of feeling of it being used and scrumpled up and like almost like a plastic bag. So to print these, I had to fold them in quarters because they wouldn't fit on the lithopress. And that created lots of creasing and lots of, unfolding and refolding. And they started to get quite worn in a bit, in parts. And I really liked that. And it showed that they had been through a lot, just like the plastic that I had found on the beach. Yeah, they're very durable, and like they won't, like they're not going to rip or they're not going to fade. So yeah, I really enjoyed making these. And this is the final degree show. So I hung them about 2 or 3 centimeters from the wall. And I did this because I wanted them to move as people walked past. So when people walked by, they kind of swayed and moved kind of as, seaweed or kind of natural material would move through the water. And when the light caught them at certain stages of the day, if you look behind, it looked almost like stained glass window, which was something that I hadn't thought about or hadn't expected, but it was a really nice surprise. Okay, so, and you can see in the middle of the room here, there are some sculptures, so I'll talk about them now. So I really wanted to get into, halfway through my second year, I really wanted to get into making some 3D work. When I was in NCAD, I loved ceramics, and I'd always kind of loved in exhibitions, I'd always go to like the ceramics part or the sculptural bit as well. And I just thought, you know, I'm a printmaker, I'm not going to get into sculpture. I don't know how, or I don't know how to go about it. So I just kind of thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll think about, you know, how I can kind of combine print and sculpture. So I was thinking about casting, and I've been really inspired by Rachel Whiteread, and looking at, you know, using a mold to create a multiple. And although these ones aren't editionable, I was thinking along those lines. And also when I was collecting the plastic from the beaches, I started to find a lot of vessels, so a lot of like milk bottles and plastic and water bottles. So I just started to kind of store them away, and maybe I would use them someday. So then what I did was I felt really guilty about throwing away all the plastic that I had collected and printed with, because number one, they were so beautiful because they were like soaked in all these gorgeous colors of ink. And then I don't know, I just don't like throwing things away. So I wanted to kind of use everything up. So I sourced bioresin online, and I started to make these casts of bioresin and the plastic that I've been printing with. And the bioresin it's the one I use is called Super Sap, and it replaces petrochemicals with renewable bio and plant-based materials. So it's not, I've had a few questions about that in the past, like I'm not adding to the problem as such. And what I wanted to do almost is kind of like show, it was almost like they were like messages in a bottle. Okay, finally. So 2020, this is where things really start to change. So I wanted to revisit the resin work that I had been doing at the end of 2019 in the Royal College, and I felt like I'd only just touched on it. So I still had bags and bags of plastic from the beach, and I really wanted to embrace that idea of having a message in a bottle, and kind of having these objects that people can really look at and kind of investigate themselves. So these are two from a series called Fish Food that I made to go towards an exhibition in Atelier Mazer called Assemble. And these are just some close-ups. What I started to notice from all of my beach cleans was that the things that just kept popping up were combs, toothbrushes, razors, panty liners, tampon applicators, mascara, containers, lipstick containers, a lot of to do with the beauty industry. And then also loads of drug packets as well. So yeah, it was kind of, I wanted to kind of maybe in the future make work around that, those things that I found. So then these are two more from that series. I then started to include some of the natural material, some shells and seaweed, because I really started to think about the combination of the natural and the man-made, and that was something that I was really interested in. And just to note actually that the reason why I started to really focus on the plastic milk bottles was because I wanted to kind of note and make comment on the dairy industry and the effect the dairy industry was having on the environment. And so I did use these on purpose. And actually after a while, I couldn't find enough bottles on the beach. So I had to use recycled bottles that either my parents had kept for me or family members. So it wasn't all just found on the beach. And this is the installation of the exhibition in Assemble. It was actually due to open on the 12th of March, which was the day we got locked down last year, which was kind of sad. But yeah, it did open during the summer, which was great. And then some of my work then went into Druicht Gallery in Banterstown, into the exhibition New Impressions, which was, there was 4 artists, myself, Neil Dunn, Fiona Kelly and Margaret Alvin. Okay, nearly done. So yeah, then I started to bring my casts and my sculptures back to the place where I found the plastic originally. And it was here that I started to notice the beauty and the contrast of the natural and the man-made. And this was something that I really wanted to explore in my work and that I was really excited by. So because of COVID and not being able to be in the graphic studio making prints or really be anywhere, I started to paint, and I never really painted much before. I always kind of went through the first part of my career as now just thinking, I'm a printmaker, I don't know how to paint. And you know, I don't really paint like I don't know, I feel like I kind of went back to being a child again and just throwing paint and having a bit of fun with it. So I really was interested in concrete and the actual the contrast of concrete and driftwood. So I was collecting a lot of driftwood from the beaches, and there was something really interesting that I found about it, that, you know, it had gone on this journey from being this live living thing that is so vital to us as to be able to live and to breathe on the planet, and yet it still you know, carries on and comes back in this beautiful kind of smooth and sculptural form. So I don't know, there's something I found kind of almost poetic about them. And I have a whole studio full of bits of driftwood that my partner keeps threatening to burn some of it because he thinks that, oh, it'll be perfect. So yeah, I was really interested in using driftwood and then also concrete. So there was this kind of thing, this push and pull constantly, that I was looking at, you know, the man-made and then the natural, and this almost guilty pleasure that I had, you know, liking these things. So like, I love concrete. I think I love like architecture and that rawness of concrete and how beautiful it is. Yet I know how bad it can be for the environment. And so this is kind of what I'm looking at the moment. And also plastic as well. So this is called Our Mother. And this is another one I made called Temporary Construction. So kind of thinking along the same lines of consumerism and construction, and using color, lots of color. And this is the most recent one I finished. It's called Torn, again using the driftwood and the concrete, and still wanting to use a lot of my mark making and kind of, I've now started to pour paint and explore that kind of just like letting chance kind of take over in a way. And being a printmaker, I've kind of had become quite a perfectionist, and I'm trying to kick that out of me now. Being a perfectionist is good when you're a printmaker because, you know, you don't make as many mistakes, and you have to be perfectionistic, especially if you're auditioning for other artists. But when it comes to your own practice, it can also be really, really shit. Okay, so this is just current work I'm making for a solo show in November. hopefully COVID will allow it to go ahead. And these are really large paintings on canvas using concrete and paint and spray paint. So I'm exploring using concrete in a different way to what people would normally consider, you know, or think about how it's used. And I've kind of been really experimenting with painting with it and hoping that it doesn't crack off, and mixing with different materials so that it is permanent. And I think I've finally cracked it. Okay, I think I've talked enough for Ireland, so thank you very much. Oh.
Would anyone like to ask questions?
I'm wondering what ambitions do you have for your print work? Like, you've explored so many different media in print, and I'm just wondering, is there any one in particular that you're dying to get back to or that you want to focus on, or are you happy to kind of keep going with lithography, screen, etching, and all of them?
I think I really want to explore lithography more. Like the dream would be to go to Tamarind. You can do a summer course there, but yeah, I really love lithography, and I want to explore that more. And I think, you know, etching will always almost be my first love. There is something that I think is so beautiful about that technique, and I think I really want to make more etchings because I haven't made them in ages. I actually have 3 on the go in the studio at the moment, which I haven't been able to finish. But yeah, I think I like the idea of working with print and painting and sculpture now, and having this conversation between the 3 and letting them kind of one lead the other.
Hi, Aoife. That was fantastic.
Thanks.
Great talk, and lovely to see all your work and how it all connects together. Amazing. I love your titles too. And I saw one there and I wondered about it. It was a monoprint on bread and butter.
Yeah.
What's that about?
bread and butter is a type of paper. I know it's a weird name. Yeah, but it was just a type of paper that we had in the print studio in the RCA, and I actually chose it because I love the name of it.
Right.
It was quite big and it was really smooth.
I liked that as well, Aoife, and that thing of what you're printing on and what you're printing with, and the anxieties involved with those. The nice thing about bread and butter, it's sort of reassuring because it's not an expensive paper, so you're not afraid to wreck it. Yeah. And it's got I think it contributed to that sort of freedom that you're showing, which is really the beauty of the work, that you can kind of see straight through to your emotion.
Yeah,
through the colors and the textures, and then what you actually see is what you felt. So that's fantastic. It'd be lovely to watch that.
Oh, thanks.
So do you feel that the intuitive nature of painting is kind of something that drew you from, that you're, we'll say, incorporating into print, or will in the future, that the two of them would kind of complement each other that way?
Yeah, definitely. I have this friend from the studio that has been telling me for years that I need to paint. So,
oh, really?
No, yeah, I definitely think it'll seep into the printmaking, and I think I want to use a lot more spit bite and be more free with this carborundum. Yeah. But large prints, I want to use that big press a lot more.
Aoife, I was interested in the fact that you said most of the plastic you found on the beach was from beauty products or dairy products, like from the dairy industry. And I was just wondering, is that something maybe that you want to explore further, or
yeah,
like, you know?
Yeah, there is. See, the thing is, I am so bad at like having all these ideas and wanting to explore everything and then trying to do everything at once. So this is something that I do want to come back to. I was really quite shocked at the amount of the plastic I was finding from the beauty industry and also the dairy industry. And it is something that maybe I might make a series of prints or paintings on someday in the future, hopefully. But yeah, it was something that was quite shocking.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, could you talk a bit more about like the physical process of actually printing, like on a print? Because I just found that fascinating.
Yeah, so what I actually, I don't think I did explain that very well. So yeah, how I made those prints was that I would roll up big flats of really transparent color. So I'd always start with like yellows or oranges, and then I would place all of the plastic on top of that. And we were using an offset litho press, which is like a big roller that picks up all that color and then drops it onto either your page or the plastic. So I just kept working like that and just kept layering all the transparent colors over one over another, and then eventually started to build up this really rich kind of dense, yeah, image. It was really, really nice to see. And then sometimes it, like, you'd pull the roller over and you'd be like, oh my God, wow, that's amazing. And then you almost don't want to ruin it, but you know that you're only halfway through. You know that if you just keep pushing through, you know, you'll have that amazing moment again. So yeah, there's about 15 layers in each of them.
Thanks, Aoife. That was amazing.